Okay. Three, two. Welcome to the iRacers Lounge. I am your host, Mike Ellis. iRacers Lounge is a podcast for the iRacer where we talk all things iRacing in a casual setting. Joining me are the usual characters, David Hall.
Am I? Am I a usual character?
Welcome back, Greg Hectus.
I think I dug myself out of a snowbank.
All right, and Brad Wren.
Week 14 is done, and we are back to racing.
On today's show, we sit down with the Major Series MEC Director Garen Batten to recap his past weekend's Blackout Endurance event, head down the rabbit hole of VR and iRacing, get an update on the current state of the GTP class, more sim to reality stories, and show you how to immortalize your last best race, and his voice chat, the best feature in iRacing.
And remember that you can follow along with us on your PC or your mobile device in real time as you listen to the show and see for yourself all of the great topics and products we'll discuss by visiting iRacersLounge.com, selecting the show notes. We hope to see you there.
All right, let's open up talking about the World of Outlaws game coming to the PC. I guess it wasn't before.
Oh, console only, yeah. This kind of was odd to me. It was coming via Steam. You can only get it through Steam, but $49.99. And I mean, isn't there a lot of overlap here with iRacing? And then you have this Steam release with this dirt. I guess if you don't want to pay, every month, you just want to pay 50 once and be done.
There's a lot of people out there, Mike, though, with console base, and Steam is such a huge database for getting gaming. It's just another place they just you kind of have to have your game there to push some extra numbers, probably to make some more revenue too, right?
Isn't there even effectively a PC that is a Steam Deck that's basically designed just to run Steam games?
Yes, I have one of them. I use it at work for breaks and stuff like that. It's perfect. Like taking like the old Game Boys back in the day, you could at least have them at work with you, or a Switch type thing, and it's nice for gaming from Steam games. But this is kind of cool though. At least people who like this type of brand of racing, and don't need it also might be you don't need a constant internet connection to play your game too.
So let's pretend I'm an executive at iRacing, and you just told me about this opportunity to make some money on Steam. I would ask you, can we integrate a button to do what's called a upgrade to iRacing, and then we give them back their $50 in credit towards their monthly fees? And make it where it can be a stepping stone into the subscription.
You're fired.
Yeah, you're fired. You don't give anybody money back.
What you do is you give them credit towards iRacing for that's amortized over a few months.
It's a promo, 6 months free or something.
I right now I see between Mike and David, I see that comic book where they kick the guy out the window and he falls down to the ground.
You know how addiction works? You always give a little bit of a sample. You have to give some of it away, then they come back buying for buying more. All right, next item we've got is a fundraising report. We have 7,500 going to Toys for Tots from the Moonhead MX5 at Martinsville event.
Yeah, it's crazy. The 2024 Mooncar 24, representing the Marines Toys for Tots Foundation. 24 hours, 58 cars, 3,559 laps, 167 lead changes, and 173 flips.
Who was the guy that got the unlucky chore of having to count the flips?
Well, my question is was that one of the things that made people donate more? Was there certain criteria to get more donations done?
How do you actually go through 24 hours worth of tape to count flips? They have to have some way to calculate that. Maybe it shows up on telemetry.
There's a few replays that he posted as well on the Twitter, and just massive pileups, like 10, 15, maybe 20 cars. I'm guessing damage is turned off. That's the only way this could continue on as a 24-hour race, or unlimited resets.
I was going to say unlimited resets, probably.
Yeah, but just keep in mind, I mean, I think this is kind of what sparked the idea for the actual Miatas going there this year.
I hope they don't mimic this.
No, they didn't, but this sparked the idea of them being able to do it.
Yeah, in real life, they don't get unlimited resets, but it's just iRacers don't know how to race Martinsville. I don't think I've ever seen a clean race there.
I feel like there's some incentive to flip. Like for them to count that many flips, there had to have been an incentive to get the cars to flip.
Well, when I saw some of those big wrecks, it looked like everybody was just piling in, to be honest. So, like you said, I think they were just doing it for fun.
It's great that it went to charity, but it doesn't sound fun to me unless the cautions were off. If the cautions were off and you just get back going as soon as you can, I would find that entertaining if we knew that going in ahead of time. But I definitely wouldn't want to spend half the time driving around under a safety car. All right. So, Greg, have you ever been Verstappen?
I have yet to be in a race with him, but Dave Cam posted a video about being Verstappen, and it's kind of it's an interesting race. I think if I remember correctly, Dave Cam qualified 9th, and Verstappen didn't qualify, and I think he started in the 20s somewhere, and I think it was by like lap 4 Max was on his back bumper, and he was trying to set the goal of staying in front of Max, but when Max got to his back bumper, Max did what Max always does. He raced him hard, and out of the exit of one of the corners, he basically just made Dave make the decision. If he wanted to stay on the track, he was going to have to let him by, and ran him as far off as he could. But it was a interesting video. I'm guessing at the end. I don't. Mike, did you see the end? Did Verstappen win it then? Did he get up to the front?
Oh yeah, he won it. Of course, he is the world champ. So I think it's so cool to have that opportunity to be in a race against Max Verstappen, regardless of what car it is, because Max is obviously very good in any car. So just to see how you stack up, that's always the coolest thing.
So did he basically just kind of put him in a position where Dave needed to back out and not wreck?
Yeah, so they were, I don't know what corner it was, but they were exiting the corner. Max just used the whole track, and Dave was on his outside, and basically if Dave wanted to stay on the track, he had to slow up. That's basically what he did.
So kind of like same thing Kyle Larson does. Larson puts you in positions where you've got to, guys have to give up because otherwise they're going to wreck. I mean, that's what Kyle Larson does.
It's I guess back in the, one of my favorite drivers, it's the Senna mentality. You make the choice if you want to wreck or not. You're going to have the accident if you choose to. They're putting you in that position.
Well, it's also what all of us GTPs do to the GT3s, right?
Yeah.
Well, Brad, how about print your own achievements? I'm saying I give this one to you because you got your name on the award. You definitely had to toot your own horn, didn't you?
Well, I put this up as an example. So we've got a website. It's iRacingAchievements.lredshaw.com. So if guys have been on the service long enough, I mean, you used to, when you get your first win, you get the email that has your PDF showing that you've won your first race. So we came across this website. You can log in and put in your driver ID, put in your session ID, and you can actually create the certificate really for whatever you want. So even if you finish dead last, you can make yourself a certificate. That's kind of neat. I mean, look, I don't think I've gotten one of these since 2010, probably, because that's probably when I won my first race when I got in the service. So, yeah, I mean, look, hey, it's kind of nice to be able to do something like this, and maybe you win a I don't know, whatever race you win or wherever you finish, and you're proud of it. You can log in here and you can create your own your certificate.
Would this work for Hosted, or did Hosted give you an ID number?
I'm sure
they have a session, and they do have a session and and your driver ID.
So I wonder,
every session has a number.
So I wonder if you can print up league stuff then, or
yeah, so you can
Hosted.
you can put on the wall your second place from Monday night.
I'll report back to you in a second on that. See how it works.
I just want to ask, who's going to give me back all that time over the years of all those forum posts of all the people demanding their certificates right after a special event, and they haven't made them all yet? I want all that time back. We should just tell people, go make your own. It's right here.
But on a forum post, didn't you really choose to lose that time?
Now, this just works for sessions. It would be interesting if you could do it for, like, Mike, when you're racing your championships, if you could get a certificate for your 13-week championships.
That's a good point. I don't know if that has a session ID. So this is only for a particular race. Now, when I first found this website, I think me and Chris Waldron, we did a midnight running of Dallara Dash. Me and him, just an unofficial race, and I think I finished third and he finished seventh, and I printed out the achievement of his seventh place and put it in the chat, and he's like, what?
Does it work, David?
I'll get back to you. We'll move on to the next story, and I'll pipe in a second. I had to look up my ID at first. I forgot it. Now I have to go find the session number. While I'm doing that, Mike, tell us a little bit about this next story, which is another Cinder reality.
Yeah, Brad talked about this last week, episode 1, I believe it was, where the sim racer gets a chance to drive a Red Bull car, basically in real life, move up from the sim racing ranks into the real racing, and basically test a couple cars. We saw him test a F4 and a Porsche and so forth, and I got hooked. And so I went this last week and watched the other episodes, and this is episode 4, the final one, where they put him in the Formula One car. And Brad, I thought we would talk about this, the final episode, and how he came up to speed so quick and baffled everyone at Red Bull Racing. What did you think of it?
Yeah, I thought it was great. So this is the kind of a short documentary on Sebastian Job. So Porsche Carrera Cup esports champion. So as we talked last week, he spent the first episode was him in a Porsche Cup car. Trying to remember where it was in England. I don't remember now. But then he goes. Yeah, Snetterton. So the next 3 episodes are at Red Bull Ring, and he spends time in the F3. I think F3, yeah, and then moves up to the 3.5 or whatever. But yeah, this episode he gets to get in the Formula One car and just look. I think he really just wowed the guys of how quickly he got up to speed and how he was able to. I mean, he was literally. I think he was really. I mean, whoever it was, I can't think of the guy's name that went out there and set the base lap, but he wasn't far off of it. But look,
wouldn't have been Perez.
No, but the one thing that I think that floored me through all of it, and that was the constant comments of how he was able to take the instruction that they gave him and then immediately do it. And they don't get that sometimes from guys that have been racing their entire lives, that have come up through karting and everything else. I mean, they would make a suggestion, he would go out there and do it. just a really cool thing to watch. So, I mean, look, we've said over and over again that simulation is becoming more and more relevant in real world racing. So, again, the premise was, can we take a sim racer and put him in an F1 car? And how will he do? Well, I think Sebastian showed that he'll do very well. Now, again, he's out there on the track by himself. There's not 21 other F1 drivers out there. So, it's that scene from Days of Thunder I always go back to, when Cole Trickle gets in the car and, runs around Charlotte.
Dropping the hammer.
Right. And then, I think, what is it? Rowdy tells him, now go get your own and get out there with 40 other cars and see how you do. But again, I just think, look, I think Sebastian is super talented, and I think it shows that you can transition from sim racing to real world racing. But again, it takes a unique breed. Look, I can't go get in an F1 car. None of us could, because we're not talented enough to do that. Okay. I think there's some people that have an innate talent to drive a race car, whether it starts on a sim or starts in real life. William Byron is a perfect example of somebody that started on the sim, had the opportunity to get into a car and has done very well. But there's some guys, like I would call him a prodigy, to where he was able to really transfer that over. But again, the guy's just super talented.
Do you think, I was thinking this when I was listening to the episode from last week, that he's able to transition and take the feedback because he doesn't have the poor racing habits that somebody that had been racing for years would come and try and, they think they're better than it. He's coming in receptive because he doesn't have any experience in any of these type of cars or racing in general that way.
Okay, a couple of thoughts. The driver coach, I forget his name, but he's had more laps at the Red Bull Ring than anybody, and he's former F1 driver, etc. But he put down a reference lap time of 1:16.6. Sebastian's fastest lap of the day of 1:17.7. So he was 1.1 seconds off of that guy's lap. Outstanding. The other thing, when they interview Christian Horner and you see that gleam in his eye, that he's like, this guy's for real. Maybe I can put him in a car. I wonder if Christian is seriously thinking of a path for this guy to get to Red Bull racing at F1.
Well, depending on when they filmed this, maybe it was the gleam in his eyes because he knew he was getting rid of Perez.
Come on.
Sorry, I can't hate on him any more than I already do. But no, I don't, Mike. I would guess that they're going to have a trajectory that they'd have to start him like from the bare minimum again. Like, obviously he's done these things by himself, but if they were going to do it, you'd
like
want
Red Bull Academy or something.
Yeah, I mean they have all kinds of stuff. I'm sure they could get him karting. They could get him into the lower series. There's probably, and all those different cars that he drove, he could progress that way if they were going to think about doing that.
Other thought on this was watching the episodes as he goes up through the F3, the 3.5, and then the F1 car. The jump in horsepower, speed, grip was amazing to see. I mean, you really see it as he goes from one car to the other. That really blew me away.
Yeah, I mean, I think the F3, the first open wheel car was 300 horsepower. Then we went to 500. Then you go to 1,000 horsepower in the F1. But yeah, again, it's just I think it's episode 2 where they go out there for the very first time, and it's early in the morning. The track is wet, and you watch him just continue to learn to adapt to what he was dealing with. And again, I think, Greg, I think you're spot on that he doesn't have the bad habits. That's that people have, that you have to work those habits out of so many guys sometimes, whether it's coming from karting or whatever it's coming from. There's habits that drivers have. And look, let's look at with the introduction of the next gen car. It took some guys a couple years to really figure it out, and some still haven't figured it out. I think Kyle Busch is a perfect example of somebody who has not figured out how to drive off the right front because he's forever driven off the right rear. So there's some things where some guys just can't change, and can't change the mind and can't get themselves adapted to something different.
The other thing that I was thinking about seeing this, because the trust factor as a driver. He has never crashed in one of those cars. He's never taken a hard hit, and sometimes
He
that's
spun it.
no. But I'm saying like when you crash one of those cars for the first time, you would probably like if he went back out after a crash or something, and like a couple days later or something, it might take a little bit of out of you to try and because you got to build that stuff up over years of driving. And if you say he wrecked that F1 car or something like that, that would be he doesn't have the crash fear. He's probably is scared. Like I would guess that there is a fear to him, but he doesn't have the what could go bad fear maybe in him. Maybe he just doesn't have it at all too. Like it could be that his way he's wired, but that's what I'm just thinking. Like he kind of just kept going there. He trusted that the aero was going to do it, the tires were going to grip. Because that's the other thing. It's like, how do you throw it into a corner and just know it's going to be there?
Well, that's the trust thing. I can, we ran. What did we run? When I joined you guys to run the 24 hours of Le Mans, it's the first time I've been in a GTP car, and the one thing I had to continually tell myself was to trust the car. Not coming from GT3, just to trust the downforce and to trust the car. And that was the hardest thing for me, was to break the habits of a GT3 racer to get into a GTP car.
Well, it's definitely a great story, and I'm sure we'll have more to follow up on that. I do have an update before we jump into the next item. On that website, it does work on hosted races for individual events, but I couldn't get it to work for the team event. So I couldn't pull up our Blackout 24-hour and make anything. But I printed my awesome certificate from Monday night. I mean, I'm so proud of that, man.
Top 20?
Not quite. All right. So next up is the 2025 special events calendar. And it looks like a lot of what we're used to. One thing that's on here is the Dale Jr. charity event that's going to be running the mini stocks. There's no time slot set for it. It's supposed to be on the 31st. Most of the other things we've seen before, the Indy 500 or 400 is back. The Brickyard 400 is back. And so is the Indy 500. And this time, those look like they are on different weeks instead of the same week. The classic GT race is at Portimao. And then I don't really see anything else on here that we haven't seen in the past.
Has it really always been this full?
That was what I was going to say. I mean, what are we talking? Basically 29, is it 29 events? I mean, that's literally like every other week. There's a special event.
Basically,
I did miss one.
Every time you get a paycheck for work, you would be getting one.
I did miss a new one. The 4 Hours of Thruxton is a TC car event.
Well,
that's running in June.
They never ran Did they run a Firecracker 400 last year?
Not with the 87s, I don't think.
That's why I was thinking that's new too.
Well, it's nice to get this kind of early too. I mean, I don't remember getting it this early last year, did we?
Well, it also obviously there's no surprise tracks or anything written in here for this year. Like
I don't know if it's that. I don't know. I think last time it came out partial instead of complete because we're only 3 weeks away from the Roar.
Yeah. But all right, so Greg, I mean, what's missing? You say no surprise tracks. Is there really anything that's missing from the big things we would think about over the course of a motorsports year?
The only thing that I would think is if we ever got Monaco, it would be the other one that would get added to this.
Well, there is one thing missing. It's Le Mans.
Well, I know, but we know that.
What do we got? Like 6 more years of them to fumble that contract?
I just run it in the cons pit. That's okay.
So the Firecracker 400 is new, I think.
Yeah, we did catch that one. I didn't notice it at first, but yeah, it's up there.
And so the long,
you're right, it is full. It is packed full.
The long NISs are Daytona, Bristol, Indy, and what?
Coke. Coke
Charlotte.
600. Yeah, Charlotte. Same ones. I think same ones as last year.
Don't they have Bristol in here? It wasn't Bristol last year. It was what was the other? Was
Yeah,
it
it was.
Bristol? Was it?
Was
Okay.
it? Yeah, I think it was Bristol.
Because sometimes they rotate those. I'm kind of surprised they're the same.
Well, usually you get the Southern 500 or you get Bristol, right?
Yep.
Did they have? I want to say one year. Didn't they do Martinsville full?
Oh gosh, I can't even imagine.
I could be wrong.
They don't want to see a spike in the self-harm statistics of the country.
250 is bad enough. I can't imagine doing 500.
So it's definitely full. A lot of stuff to plan on there. We have already started planning a little bit for the 24, as well as the MEC series, which we'll probably talk a little bit more in the results. Plus, you've already heard a little bit about that if you've listened to the interview, which these guys, I don't know if they've listened to it yet. We pre-recorded it yesterday.
I'm some of those endurance ones right off the bat. I always love the beginning of the year with the endurance there, David. The Bathurst 12 and the Sebring 12.
Well, yeah, and Daytona is the race that like oval people will come out for that never touch the road cars ever again, right?
Oh, you just called my name out? I heard my name?
And I'll be like, come run IMSA with me. And then it's crickets. I got Brad to run with me one, but he couldn't finish the first lap of the race. But I shouldn't be shit talking about that considering how Monday went.
You didn't finish. Yeah, I was gonna say.
It's okay. I ran the next one and I made it up.
So let's talk some Fallout after this came out, the event calendar. The Fallout was the Nürburgring 24-hour race. Apparently, the TCR class was completely removed, and that provided a lot of feedback in the forums. People wondering, well, wait a minute, the TCR class is very important to that particular event, and to remove it is kind of sacrilege, So
why is it on the sheet then, Mike? Why does it say it's there though?
Well, they added it back.
Oh, did
yeah.
it?
So
Okay,
24 hours later, Greg West came in the forums and said, "Okay, we hear you. We're going to add it back."
Yeah, man, I think the original premise was, again, they'd already added another class. So the thought was you're going to dilute the car count even more. And I understand that. I mean, you can have so many classes to where if you got three or four cars in a class, two guys fall out. I mean, you're not racing anybody. I mean, I understand that. But I guess there was a hide up. Again, the forums were a perfect example of guys just losing their mind.
Not
Well,
the iRacing forums, though it's a civil area.
I like, though, that iRacing is receptive to the change of moving it back, and they did. So,
did they really have a choice?
Yeah.
Well, we talked about this in the interview. iRacing does make some of their decisions based on the fact that they are a subscription-based model. Whereas you buy a console game that you're never going to hear from them again. Maybe this wasn't the interview. This might have been I heard it either on a podcast or I talked about it in an interview. The difference, I'm getting old.
You heard it on a podcast.
Either that or I said it on a podcast, one of the two. I can't remember which. But we were talking about the difference in how iRacing deals with its clients compared to any other game, where they'll just put out a release and then a few patches and then go.
You know what the nice thing about, and this is the one thing that's good about iRacing still being PC based only, they don't have to answer to like a console company. They don't have to answer to Xbox or Microsoft or PlayStation when they come up with an update to try and feed it through because they would have to go through all the vetting processes when they update everything. So it's nice that iRacing is independent and can just do that type of thing just like that.
So let's continue on. Is iRacing too fast? So this is the continuation of our discussion last week where we said the GTP car is basically got too much grip in the corner, too much speeds in the corner compared to in real life counterparts. And now, since that discussion last week, we had a couple videos. Jimmy Broadbent, Gamer Muscle, both putting up, is iRacing too fast? Does iRacing have a speed problem? The absurdity of some iRacers criticizing the speed while ignoring the physics of it, and just having discussions about what the problem is. And then shortly after, we did get a nice response from staff about what the plan is on this problem, and what they're intending to do to fix it.
Now, I didn't watch Broadbent's video, and I didn't finish the other one because I kind of he got his point across pretty early, and also just kind of started to get on my nerves a little. But he basically said that he's right on the fact that the people are overreacting to this one thing when they've ignored physics. But is he really actually? Because now I'm kind of remembering my own thought process. Probably a lot of these same people already don't believe iRacing is realistic, and they're just trying to use this as their smoking gun. And he's trying to say that they're being hypocrites because they weren't really complaining about the physics, but a lot of them already were. This just got a lot of noise because it's very quantitative. It's easy to see instead of something being a feeling, and it's really not that far off. But I think he hashed on the physics really hard, and just said that he thinks that there's deeper problems at the same time, but it was calling on hypocrites for getting up in the air. And anytime you're talking about a group of people, you got to be careful with making statements like that anyway, because not everybody is responding to the same thing. So anytime you're talking about any group, you can't make everybody happy, and you can't say, well, you ignored this, when probably some of them didn't ignore it and some of the others didn't. And unless you're tracking exactly who's saying what and finding out who is the hypocrite and who is not, it's dangerous it's intellectually
dishonest,
inadequate. Yeah, dishonest and inadequate to talk about a group of people reacting to something, because they are all still individuals.
Yeah, look, I mean, there's fanboys out there, and I think there's a group of us that understand that, look, I've been on iRacing since 2010. Is the physics perfect? No. I know that, but there's no other option when it comes to providing racing competitively the way that iRacing is. And at the end of the day, that's what I want. Do I have to? Can I enter the corner the same way that I could probably in a real car? No. And you know what? You just learn to deal with it. I mean, I think we talked about a video last week about, are people going to be upset because they've learned to drive a certain way, and now with the new Terra model, it's going to make them drive a different way. Well, yeah, they probably will be. It's just what it is. I mean, it's just from a competitive standpoint, there's no options for me. There's nothing else out there that I can get on when I want to, and have a full field of cars. So it comes down to that's me.
To reinforce that point, which software did that guy that we just covered earlier driving the F1 car, which software did he come from?
Well, he won the iRacing Porsche Carrera Cup, but I believe he's also done some. He's an F1. Yeah, I think he's an F1 driver. As far as is it EA?
Well, I think he's in almost all the different sims though, because he's
in all of them.
He was with Redline, wasn't he?
He's with Redline. And look, we've talked. I mean, Daniel Moran, I think, has done a great example of this, and he said that look, he's done iRacing. He's done a set of Corsa Competizione. He's like, look, there's things I like from all of them, but at the end of the day, for me, it's iRacing and the braking. That's what it comes down to, and that's what he focuses on. That's why he uses it as a training tool, because the braking is as close as it's going to get to the real thing. Is the tire model perfect? Absolutely not. But for him, it's not the tire model. It's about braking. It's about muscle memory. And it's about learning the corner and whatnot. So there's no perfect sim out there. It's no different than we could have an argument between Androids and iPhones. There's great things in both of them. If you could combine them together, you'd have a perfect phone. That's never going to happen.
Okay, so I'm going to read what the staff, some of what the staff wrote here about the plan to fix the GTP cars. It said, first and foremost, we agree that the work is needed. To more accurately simulate these cars, we're investing resources with priority. We will update the class in 2 stages, tires first, then the hybrid system. While we are pleased with the driving feel improvements and advancements made with the latest tire model version, the car-specific models that debuted on the GTP and LMP2 missed the mark with grip, resulting in higher than desired cornering speeds. Beginning with GTP, our redevelopment will involve a comprehensive reconstruction of the physical tire and its composition. As a result, expect to recalibrate expectations around how the cars drive at the limit. We are targeting release updated tires next season.
That reminded me of something. Sorry, Greg. What's actually missing from the GTP car, and I enjoy driving it, but it is a copy and paste of the F1 hybrid system. It is not driving like the GTPs do, and it is not implementing the energy rules that they have, because they actually have torque sensors on the wheels, and you don't have a gas tank. You have a virtual gas. I mean, you do have a virtual gas tank, but they basically try to eliminate advantages in fuel mileage by saying every car can only spend so much energy, and they track that by actually putting sensors on the wheels that detect torque. So they're not actually physically like the real hybrids anyway. So who cares if the lap time's a little off?
So tires first, and then they're going to address the hybrid.
How about they?
I actually think that's a backwards order.
Here's my question: how about they test it before they release it?
That's another huge discussion on the forum, the QA.
Like, I know you guys were talking about this last week, and we talked about it in the chat. I don't know, maybe it was the chat, not last week, but how do you release that not knowing that it was going to be a problem? Like, it seems like it was a huge oversight.
Yeah, I agree. Especially considering how it's an easy to measure metric, and you've got testers, you've got guys like Christian Chandler who can drive any car to its limit.
Well, they would have data of the lap times it had before. They'd also be able to go, hey, look, we have onboard footage of actual real cars in real life to see what the lap times kind of what they are. Was it last week? You guys were saying it was like, what was the lap time compared?
60 to 70 kilometers. Per hour off.
Frick. Like,
yeah,
I could see if it was 6 or 7. Like, it would be a thing, but that's a huge oversight.
Can you code me a red flag that comes up on the screen if the overall speed increases or decreases more than 3% from one build to the other? I mean, they should have like alarms for that kind of stuff, automated. Like,
well,
hey,
but I know, but look, we've run into the same thing in the oval world through the years too. I mean, yeah. there's forum posts that, you know, the times that we can run in some oval cars are not the same either. But I don't know. It's the part of me thinks that somebody thinks we're just too stupid to realize it, and that scares me. But as picky as iRacers are, there ought to be somebody going, you know what? If we release this, we're going to get blown up.
Now, I haven't seen the data that you're talking about, but Nürburgring happened over the patch, right? We were practicing. I actually set a qualifying time before and after, and it was only 1 second of difference. It wasn't like 30%. 60. So I don't know where that number is coming from. That sounds extreme.
So I think we had a video on the script last week of Sebring turn 1 showing the difference. The problem was, David, corner speeds were up, but straightaway speeds were down. So
yeah, they average it out.
Yeah, if you average it out, it probably, maybe it's only a second, but the problem is when you're running 60 or 70 kilometers quicker through a corner, that's an issue.
Kind of reminds me when we had the LMP1s, when you had the boost button where you would get the extra amount of speed.
I missed the strategy that implied that came with that.
Well, for those that missed the LMP1 times and stuff, enjoy it for season 1.
Well, why don't we just stop chatting about that and chat about something else?
Yeah, this is the voice chat. iRacing's best feature says Gamer Muscle, and he puts up a video basically targeting the other sims besides iRacing, saying, why don't you have this feature? This is so obvious. I mean, he says it's iRacing's best feature. I like it too. I mean, he has a lot of good points. It drives the community. Um,
Crazy and wild.
well, in good ways and bad ways, right? But there are good out of having voice chat, right? What is the good of it? You get to know people.
Yeah, I don't disagree, but then there's the bad side of it too, to where you finally have to mute people because you get so tired of listening to all the nonsense, or you have the situation where somebody says something that's really not wrong and gets a 6-month chat ban.
I like the more nuanced approach. Like, you pass in the guy and he kind of lets you go, and you key up, but you don't say anything, but he knows you mean thank you. You know, those are just gentleman courtesies that we have in iRacing that nobody else really would understand what we're doing. At the end of the race, you know, nice win. You tell the winner, hey, that was a nice win. You know, you give them a compliment or something. Just little stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you after, before iRacing, it was NASCAR 2, 3, in our 2003, and we had text chat. So you had something bound to thank you, pass left, pass right. So all the talking we did was amongst us. Typically there would be a league, but we're on TeamSpeak. There was no chat through the game. So yes, I do agree. I mean, that it does open up opportunities again, both good. Yep, TeamSpeak, baby.
Mike's favorite program.
That was all we had.
Well, that's what we used to record from.
But finally converted to Discord eventually, but I had to be drug into it. I didn't want to move.
Well, it happened because TeamSpeak broke.
And
that's true. They broke it.
And we were tired of paying for it.
Yeah, but again, it's it's a good bad thing. He gets abused, and look, there's times, we all know, you get, it gets to be too much, and there's times where I just have to mute it because I don't want to listen to all the other junk that's going on.
I find the chat, I don't know what the ratio is. I feel like 90 to 10% is good to the bad most of the time. There's a lot of just nonsense being talked about, but it's kind of fun because you can talk about stuff like that. But when you get into that 10% that sucks, where you got to worry about if you said something wrong to somebody, or just some of the things that some people can talk about if there's something bad going on. I don't know. I like the way that we can chat whenever we need to in here. But I mean, I reserve most of my talking and iRacing to our Discord just because it's a lot easier to vent there.
Well, same way. I mean, I'm thinking about an average race. I very rarely do I say anything, but there's always probably 4 or 5 guys that never shut up.
And you also have to watch out for that Robespierre out there, right?
I'm going to give you a pro tip. Every race I get in the first few minutes, I will right-click the name and hit mute of whoever is talking the most. Whoever is that guy who is dominating the mic, he gets muted automatically. So the one guy is going to get muted no matter what. And guess what? You're going to have a 30% better experience just by muting that one guy.
I have a key bound that will actually mute the guy that's currently talking as well. You can actually do that while you're in the car. I also have mute all the chat bound. And another thing you can do is bind the volume control. So
I have that.
If it's a really chatty lobby, just turn it down so that you can still hear if you really need to, but it's just not as disturbing.
Well, that's the frustrating part for me that comes on is, let's say you get a yellow or whatever. It's like everybody starts to talk, and I'm like, I'm trying to listen to my spotter and see what it tells me to do.
Yeah, I usually have it turned down lower because I'm going to miss what the in-game chat says before I'm going to miss my spotter or Discord.
I miss when David has a chat ban and then I'm in the race with him and he asks me to tell somebody something. I like being his go-to person to talk to people for him.
proxy.
Okay. The next time in my race, even if I'm not chat banned, I'm just going to make you say everything for me, even if I'm not banned.
Well,
okay.
the
Just
good
remember
thing
that.
Is, the good thing is my racing habits have kept me away from being in the same splits as you.
Wait, you even race?
Yeah, when it's
Yeah,
convenient for me.
we drive in circles, David.
Yeah, I prefer the cup car on a road course.
I sure as hell don't.
All right, I'm going to throw this one to David because it's about the major blackout and a issue that came up with wrong tires on the car after a caution or something.
And it's already been covered in the interview. We went into it quite a bit in depth, so I don't want to rehash that too much. Except for an update, there's a post recently from in the thread. Let me pull it up.
Yeah, there's a link. The second link is a post from the staff who said
Yeah.
they couldn't find it or anything.
And a lot of people are really kind of perplexed by this because it was doing some really weird stuff. Like depending on which driver was in the car, it was having grip or it wasn't having grip. People were running 20 seconds faster than other people on the dries. I've said this in the interview, but I put dries on with an hour and a half to go when the track was basically almost completely dried out. There was hardly any spray anywhere. The track percent was about 70%. And
17?
17.
Okay.
And I came out and it was like I was on ice. And several other people experienced this too. I couldn't control the dry tires. I had to switch back to wet. It ended up being the reason we ended up having a drive-through penalty towards the end. But we talked about this in the interview too. We had the second least incidents in our split of anybody who completed the race.
I tried to make us not the second. I really tried.
So I'm going to call Tom out. He was the one who racked up a ton of X's, but we still only got about 60.
I was doing a hell of a job on that in the first stint.
But I don't know if some people were thinking that people were not experiencing the same track. I'm not sure if that's the case or not, but it was definitely simply just not the dries were not drivable on the 70% track at all.
You brought up something came up in the interview where the thought was perhaps the track was so dirty. I mean, is it possible?
It was so dirty.
But is it possible that between whatever debris, rubber, dust, or anything, I mean, is that possible? Were you guys running? Were you running offline at all because you're coming back from a wet track? Are you running offline?
Well, if anything, the amount of dirt that was on the track, it should have turned into mud. With the rain, the amount of dirt that was all over that track.
It could have been a factor. I think what happened was that the combination of the dirt and the water, it just didn't. I think it acted in ways they probably didn't expect. They said they've looked at this, but the replay file was like 40 gigabytes because Garen did send the replay to them. So I would be surprised if they've been able to go through all that, but it probably was a combination of how dirty the track was. It seemed extreme to me. So I guess we'd need to hear from some real life racers if they run into the same issues.
So there was in the same thread, somebody had posted a side-by-side video of, a car running with a lot of spray versus almost no spray. And they mentioned in here in this post from Mike Turek says, that being said, there is definitely some variance in the amount of visual spray that each user is seeing in some of the posted clips. We're continuing to investigate this variance in the visual spray. No, so there was a chase view of the car, but two different recording from two different people, but the exact same replay. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that could have been graphic settings. But if this was an issue also, it could be that maybe I was getting the wrongs. If it was the fact that the spray data was wrong, because I almost base it less on the percentage. I just look at the tail, and when it gets to a point where there's no middle tail, there's just the two outer tails for me. That's when I know I can probably switch to dries. usually, especially in the short races. And so, if it was giving me the wrong data and the track was really wetter than it was showing me, that's a possibility too.
That's so that leads me to, I noticed after running 2 IMSA races last night at Watkins Glen because we run JRT, and I was getting conflicting statements from JRT continually, and the spotters telling me it stopped raining, but then I look at the JRT and it's even wetter and whatnot. So is it possible that 17%, David, was not 17%?
Well,
Well,
is the
raining has to do with if water's falling. 17% has to do with how wet the track already is. That's two different data. That's 2 different variables.
No, my question is could this just be an issue that they can't see yet because of the new update with the debris that's being put onto the track and mixing it with the weather conditions, that something that they just couldn't test properly and find out, because like it's just a mixture of the debris has a surface tension or whatever you call, like a surface grip level, and the water has a grip level, and when they put them together, it just not, there's something in the coating that's just not giving a constant track.
That, and who in the iRacing, I mean, they're not going to run a 12-hour race to test something. So, I mean, again, you've got this first 12-hour race. It's probably one of the first ones done after the patch. Did you guys stumble across something that may be an issue that just was never, again, they're not going to, I can't imagine them running an endurance race to test how this works.
And Greg, you just reinforced what I said earlier. I think it comes down to a combination of how the water and the debris interacted. And I think it was, I think that's something that couldn't be tested until the 12-hour race was done. So I hope that they see that something in these variables need to be adjusted. I don't give a whole lot of credence to the different people were racing on a different track, but I do think that the track was too slick for what I was seeing visually and from JRT.
Well, maybe it's a whole thing where it's like you got the dynamic track, you got the particulates, you got the rain, you got the new tire, and you got the server, and maybe they're just not all working together properly where they're giving the right data to every person. Like there could be just a broken piece of code that, it for some reason when you're going past this, the first person past this track gets this much grip, and the next, like, it just could be anything that's just broken in a code or whatever that they just can't see yet. Because the tire is another thing that was added to it, right? Like, was that rain tire would have been different 2 grip levels since the update.
Yeah, the rain tire worked fine. It was the dry tire that was really weird. But they say in their reply that they think the debris system and the dynamic track system worked perfectly. So that's what's in question. I don't think it did.
Was it just GTPs or was it GT3s that were also having the same issue?
It was just GTPs as far as I know.
Well, then, hello. That's the only thing they got an update on the tire model.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to go work for iRacing.
Well, this
You're
whole
making
last
too much sense, Brad.
We're spitballing and highly speculative right now, just spitting out a bunch of theories that they probably have done in their conference room as well. So, like I said, that got covered pretty far in depth in the interview as well. But let's move on and talk Season 4 contest winners.
Yeah. So what are those winners? I have the page up. I haven't found the winner list. Just a minute. Okay, boy, we got a list. So this was Season 4 2024 winner list. And I'm not going to read the entire list because, man, there's like 50 to 100 names here. So congratulations to everybody. I looked through the names, see if I know anybody. Matt Malone won something.
So, all right, I'm going to go down this rabbit hole just because I want to, because we do it every start of the season. I don't ever watch Matt Malone stream. Is he running a trading paint scheme? Is he running a custom scheme?
Doesn't he have grid, that scheme that is the whatever his stream sponsored by?
See, See, this is again, she clearly says we're going to get to the article ahead of time that you have to have trading paints disabled. So the question is, let's go back and look at Matt Malone's streams and see if he's running a default scheme with the logos or if he's running a custom scheme. This will settle the argument forever.
It's the Ford Mustang that he won in, so you'd have to find a stream in the Ford Mustang.
Yeah, but ask him too.
But it's the FR500S. Again, if we can see what his stream is on this, then we've settled the whole debate. We never have to have it again.
Is anybody in a Discord with him? He's been on the show before. We could just ask him.
Now, just go look at his YouTube page while we move on to the next.
Research while you guys go on.
Nice.
All right. So, how many races have you ran? Is the question put up in the forums by Jeff Jacobson. And he said, well, how many people have actually gotten to 10,000 races or more? Because the award that's in iRacing is to get to 1,000 and you get a reward. And so it turns out there's actually a lot of people that have gotten over 10,000.
Do you have a list?
Yeah, so if you look at these links I put in here. I have to log in, of course.
Yeah, same here.
I think you have to log in and then click the link again.
To the forum or to the iRacing? Because it's just taking me to the iRacing UI.
Yeah, it's taking me right back to the UI.
I hate when permalinks don't work, but I had figured out in the stats a way to filter it where you could see everyone, how many laps, like you just put up the list of people and you click the header for laps and it sorts it by whoever has the most.
And that's just, were you able to do it in all races or did you have to do it in each category? Because the driver,
I think it was all. I have to look at it again, but
the driver's standing page is separated by all 5 classes.
Didn't we used to be able to do this pretty easy in the website?
So you go to results and stats, you click on driver, and then you sort it by laps, I believe.
Laps? Would it be races?
Starts.
Races, sorry.
Then you have 5 different
starts,
classes.
Correct, starts. So there it is. So I'm 574 in the oval side. So you have to do it by oval or road or whatever. So I'm looking at oval. The number 1 guy is Lawrence Pollock with 19,691 starts. Doug McCollum is in second, 14,904.
I got 455.
2,039.
I'm almost at 2,000.
Well, I was gone for 7 years.
So
wait till I get sports car up because I run that during the day when nobody else is around.
David's the one that's going to go for the 10,000 now on our team because he's home more often now.
Now, I went down a rabbit hole a little bit and I started sorting by not by just the start, but how many championship points. There's people that have like 1.5 million championship points. It's crazy.
So I had 2,700 road starts before they split the road classes. So I'm close to 5,000 starts.
Here's Malik Ray is 4th in all-time points scored at 1,084,000.
Oh, whatever I did, instead of getting the blue screen to death, I got the white screen to death with iRacing. I broke it.
All right, it's another sim to reality story. Garrett Lowe is going to be testing NASCAR Euro Series.
Right. BS Competition put up a post saying he's going to Euro NASCAR to do a test. If you check their most recent Twitter from today, you'll see some pictures of him posing with the car. Beautiful car. It's got a red on one side, white on the other. Like it's the oddest thing. It looks like two different cars if you look at it from two different sides. But his fire suit also matches that scheme where half of it's red and half of it's white.
That's pretty cool. I think, what is it, Brad? Is it Brad Perez that ran? I think almost the full season last year or a good chunk of them.
Well, it's a neat opportunity. We've seen Garrett Lowe do Legends in the Charlotte area, I believe, and then he got some late model starts as well. And now here he is going to Euro NASCAR, at least for a test.
All right, it's time for a little iRacing humor. We've got a post from Brian Corwin that is very, very appropriate for the day. It's short enough. I'm going to read it to us. Since the GTPs, LMP2s, tires, cones, dirt, gravel, weather system, pro system, costume system, I'm adding a few, are broken beyond repair, allegedly, I'd like to throw my hat in the ring and complain that there isn't a realistic amount of birds and other wildlife in the sim. We need lizards, deer, various species of birds, and maybe a cat or two for this to be a true sim. It's completely unacceptable. This has been overlooked for too long. And then the first reply is brilliant as well. Opens up a new category for achievements of number of roadkill.
So when I was doing the script, I threw in there, does anybody remember the new bird model? Because if you've been on the sim long enough, Mike, you probably remember when the bird model was launched, and it was a big deal to have birds flying over the track. And I mean, it's just, that's where we've come from. So look, we have rain that is realistic and flows on the track the way that it should. And we've come from, the bird model. I mean, that's where we're at now.
And the bird model was pretty bad. It was just like 6 or 7 birds, always in a V. They never, differentiated from that, and they always went the same way at the same time. And yeah.
So look, I mean, if I know that this is just in jest, and I get it, but look, if you've been on the service long enough, we've come a long, long way from where this thing was when it started.
Even if it's in jest, I kind of like the idea. I mean, and make it where it's very rare. Like once a year in one of these races at Spa, a deer is going to cross the track and somebody's going to hit it.
Or maybe a shoe. Right?
But
shoe thrown at Watkins Glen.
Look, if the front fascia comes off a car and I drive through it, if it's not collidable, then they're going to make the deer collidable.
Well, and it's maybe not, but maybe have it visual, like he says, a cat or birds and stuff. Like even that should be a rare thing. But you imagine you're on the grid at Lime Rock and something catches your eye off to the left. What was that?
We can recreate Dale Earnhardt hitting the seagull at Daytona, or we can somebody hit, what was it, a fox or something at Pocono? They got hit one year.
All right, back to a slightly serious note. We had a season 25, season 1 hotfix 2 release notes. Let's talk about that a little.
Yeah, so just a few things on here. Race control fixed a critical issue where custom sectors could not be set with the active reset feature. Continuing to tweak the dynamic track model, debris particles may now be spawned along the entire width of the tire carcass instead of only on the center of the contact patch. Some parameters for gravel, mud, and dust debris have been updated. They also fixed an issue where the updated debris system, where some particles were not allowed to interact with the environment during their lifetime. So dirt racing fixed an issue with loose dirt. And the replay cameras tweaked the AI. Critical issue where AI drivers would refuse to grid for oval events using timeline weather. So the AI drivers definitely need to learn how to drive better. Graphics continue to tweak the SSAO processing along shape edges. Let's fix some issues with the rear brake lights on the pace car. some 3D foliage issues, and then a few tweaks on the cars. So the new Supercar Gen 3s, some drafting distances and corresponding effects have been updated. Also fixed, I think, just some paddle shifters on the Acura, some damaged model stuff. So not a whole lot. I mean, the hot fix is usually just kind of a quick hit on things. So brake markers at Mid Ohio, and environment textures at Thruxton. So just a little bit of, it's always that stuff that kind of gets through the last round, or I guess that when they release the first patch, they still realize, oops, missed this.
And we usually don't talk about the iRacing app releases, but I wanted to bring this one up as well, Brad, because they added that neat feature where you can see at the end of the season a recap. How many wins did you get for the season? How many laps did you lead? How many races did you participate in, etc. And so you do have to go to the App Store and update the app for you to see the feature in the app. It's under the profile page. And we got to share in the chat all of our season recaps today and to see how each other did. And Brad, you found a couple of discrepancies, was it?
Well, it doesn't show that I led any laps, even though I had a win in the GT3. And like Dave reminded me, I guess GT3s technically don't lead a lap. But again, I think a class, if you're going to, I don't know. That sent me down the rabbit hole of looking at IMSA results, trying to figure out if they would actually credit GTD drivers with laps led, but they don't credit. IMSA doesn't credit anybody with a lap led statistics. So I don't know. Look, I'm just happy I can get this because no matter what I've done, I've never been able to get the email sent to me. I contacted support last year and they're like, oh, make sure that you don't have us blocked, which I did. I get every other spam from iRacing, but I have yet to ever receive the end of the season update from iRacing. So this is the first time I've been able to see it. I was happy.
Yeah, you can get it in the app and apparently in the UI, the beta UI as well.
Is it really a beta UI?
Yeah, I'm always going to call it that.
It is the permanently beta UI. It is so beta.
How long was it really in beta? It was like almost 3 years or longer, right?
So where is it at in the UI?
I think it's under profile. I thought I read it was available in the UI. Maybe
Yep.
I'm wrong.
There it is. Recap.
It's a start. Look, I've asked before about we want some AI powered stats that are relevant to what I'm racing. That are pop-ups or that kind of stuff. I mean, the graphic is nice for at the end of the season, but take it to the next level.
All right, we're getting into some scheduling items now. We have the Winter Stream schedule, and this is a series of events going from December 21st through January 5th. January 5th jumps out to me because it's the INSA Esports Global Challenge Round 3. So I guess, is that going to be their World Championship for the sports cars?
Well, this is Drew Adamson's way of saying that he's working through the holiday. But look, Drew put this up on our Discord. Thanks, Drew, for letting our listeners know about this. And so staff member Drew Adamson is the guy who does the producing for the stream that you would watch these races on. So yeah, he's pretty much busy every day but Christmas.
So December 24th, I'm curious. iRacing Yule ASMRS. What do we think that's going to be?
Well, ASMRs are like on TikTok. It's like a video of a lady, crunching her fingernails against paper, or just making little sounds that make you go, "Oh, that's so soothing." That's what ASMR is. So
I get that. So I'm wondering what the iRacing Yule version of that's going to be.
Probably just the background sounds of a racetrack with the engines running, right? I've heard people talk about how at the Daytona 24, if you're camping, you actually wake up when the caution comes out because it suddenly becomes quiet.
yeah, pretty cool. I mean, they got top broadcast of 2024, top content of 2024. I see the Downshift podcast on one day. Why don't they do the iRacers Lounge podcast one day?
Perhaps we need to have a discussion with them.
Let's just raid their stream on the 26th if it's live.
Hijack it.
All right. Next up is Season 1 2025 contest. And Brad, I'll have to ask you to see if you'll get fired up. Do you have to have Trading Pains disabled?
Well,
Oh, wait, we already covered that, didn't we?
Yeah, well, Greg's doing the research, but again, according to Angela, you have to have it disabled. So just a couple highlights here. So the big one I saw was the with the new BMW M2 is the chance to win the ultimate BMW M2 track day with Scott Mansell at Donington Park. So I'm not sure if one of us was to win that. Would they fly us over there? I guess so. I don't know.
That would fly me over if I got that for sure.
Yeah. So just a few other here, some Go Motorsports Shop, Sim Shop, kind of some of the normal ones. I don't know. Seems to be a little bit less this time when I kind of flip through it. I don't know if maybe it's just me, but seemed to be a little bit less.
Yep. And then also, Drew Adamson, as I mentioned before, also posted up in our Discord about the hey, have a cool iRacing screenshot. They're looking for them to be included in this slideshow for that event that he's doing. So I kind of looked through my pictures, guys, for screenshots. I went on the team chat. There's so many photos that we've sent to each other. I couldn't really, narrow it down to actual beautiful screenshots, and so I couldn't find anything to send.
All right, we got one of our events coming up that I think I'm going to get to go to now. As the North American Sim Expo for 2025. It's going to be down in Austin, Texas, March 13th through 15th. So if we get to go, I don't know if we'll end up getting a booth or just slap on our merch and go around and talk to everybody like some of the other influencers do.
Yeah, if we can get a table for free or for low price, maybe we'll get a booth. But no, I don't.
Ain't nothing free.
Right. Tickets coming soon. I mean, nothing's for sale, so I'm not booking travel or anything yet. But it should be soon, I would guess.
That's driving range for me.
Not me.
All right, other events. Production Car Challenge has been announced. A late addition, I think it was, to the special events, but it's December 27th through the 29th. The new BMW M4, the Renault Clio and GR86, and the Mazda MX-5.
All right, this is not the new BMW. This is the 2018. This is the previous
the
one.
M4, not the M2.
Correct.
I see.
It's interesting numbering. Is the M4 an older model than the M2?
No, it's a different model.
Ah.
All right, and then Brad, this weekend iRacing.
Yep, just a couple quick hits here. So we got the winner NASCAR iRacing Series is at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Normal times for that. The BMW Motorsports M2 Cup, which is the new rookie series, will be at Alton Park. Mike's favorite, the FIA F4 Americas are at WeatherTech Raceway at Laguna Seca. Asia Pacific is at Tsukuba Circuit. Europe's Alton Global is at Snetterton. Your Draftmeister, Ringmeister, Rainmaster, and all that. So that's about it. And then we do have official iRacing Esports at the World of Outlaws Pro Qualifying Series and the Pro Series. So is at Knoxville this week. So broadcast for that is at 8:00.
So we talked about Sim Racing Expo Now we have Sim Gaming Expo.
Yeah, this is the one we talked about originally. So this was announced earlier than the one in Austin. This is the one that's going to be, I think, in Chicago in March. Or, no, I'm sorry, September. This is the one that's going to be in September. So, as we said before, this is going to be more of a sim gaming expo, not just a sim racing. So it's supposed to cover everything from flight sims to sim racing. I'm sure they'll have probably truck sims, farm sims. Greg probably wants to go to that. So, yeah, this one I think looks good as well.
Do they have ski sims and referenced chat?
So I out of which one would I go to if I had to pick? I'm going to go to the one in March in Austin because the organizers of that one are the organizers of the one that it's been in Europe for the past 10 years. It's been very successful.
ADAC.
The ADAC, right?
It's also a little sooner and it's a better time of year.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I said, I think it'll be interesting to see what we continue to learn about the one that's going to happen in September. They've got a lot of time ahead of it, almost 9 months. So I'm curious to see what's going to end up, what's going to happen there.
Yeah, maybe I'll do both, but yeah, I'm not going to commit. Podcast housekeeping, leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform to make it easier for more listeners to find the podcast. Mention the podcast to your fellow drivers so they don't miss out. We do appreciate that. Get involved in the discussion on Discord. A lot of guys talking about the GTP problems over there and the lack of QA and a lot of good discussion. I appreciate the listeners doing that where we can see it and then talk about it on the show. And then check our script at iRacersLounge.com. And we are in regular rotation at Performance Motorsports Network. And David's been screaming, buy your iRacers Lounge merch. We have quality shirts, hats, even muscle shirts for the gym. So check it out at iRacersLounge.shop.
All right, sim racing enthusiast, and he also used to drive an IndyCar for a while. Tony Kanaan has our first hardware item. It's a post where he was impressed by the yaw movement by the advanced sim racing motion platform. He said it added a lot of immersion and connection. He absolutely loved it. It's an X post that we have here. The link is broken, but I just copied and pasted it and it worked.
Yeah, we've had a problem with embedding Twitter onto the script recently. But we talked about this motion system a few weeks ago, and this is a nice video of it in action, and then obviously getting Tony's thoughts of it after he drove it. But this has got the D-box style up and down on each corner, but it's also got the slip left, right, front, back as well underneath that. And so it looks pretty low profile and not, big or anything like that. Very nice motion system. Super expensive, I bet.
All right. This dashboard is a modular dashboard by Sim Racing GPC. What do you think of this one, Brad?
Yeah, so this is from Sim Magic. We saw this when we kind of saw some of the blips from the Sim Expo that was in Europe. If I remember correctly, we had it's like a video of somebody being able to actually pick up the DDU and you could move it. You could move it from the wheel. You could move it to the base. So again, some stuff that's coming from Sim Magic. I'm toying with the idea of replacing my GT wheel with a wheel with a DDU. So I'm going to kind of hold off here. Sim Magic's got some stuff out. They've had the Formula FX Pro wheel, but it's not SimHub compatible. But my understanding is that these new ones that they're working towards releasing will be SimHub compatible. So I'm going to kind of wait till they do something like that, just because that's the ecosystem I'm in. And the idea of looking at some of these Formula rims that are like $1,400-$1,500 makes me want to throw up. So, but yeah, this was pretty neat. I mean, they, if I remember the video correctly, they could actually pick the DDU up off the wheel and would stick it right on top of the base, and it would light back up. And then they could pick it up and put it back on the rim, on the wheel or whatever. So, yeah, it's pretty neat. Hopefully, see some of this stuff out later in 2025.
Yeah, if you click the image, it'll play that video, Brad. Now, Dave, you did skip one. Let's go back to that.
Oh yeah, better than trading paints is the topic. So this is a rival to trading paints, I guess. Is that what it is? And do they have access to trading paints database?
That's what I asked when this came up in our chat. Somebody brought up irpaints.com, and this is the website where you can download a alternative server or client, I guess you should say. So instead of running the iRacing Paints downloader on your sim racing computer, you would delete that and run this particular downloader. Why? Because apparently it's better, it's more reliable. I don't know. I don't get it. And why would trading paints allow a separate client to connect? Like that, isn't it kind of weird that they're using their database, but they have their own client? I just find it very odd.
So they do have access to the trading paints files.
Yes, they don't have their own trading paint. They don't have a place where you upload paints. They're using the trading paints database.
Nope, I'm good. I'll continue to support trading paints. They've been around, big supporter of the community for years. I have the pro. I will gladly pay for that. Doesn't bother me a bit.
Right. I don't see the purpose of it.
Can we circle back to something for a sec here, Brad? I did a little bit of research.
Oh, did you have to leave the room to do it? You got some information in another room?
No, that's the kids bugging me. Anyways, so reading up on, I'm trying to figure out. So the Skip Barber Mustang Challenge was one of the things for that event. That Matt Malone was in the Mustang.
Right.
There is no thing in the Skip Barber racing shootout that says you have to run a paint or a decal for it. It just says you have to participate in that series. So maybe that's how.
Oh.
So
darn it!
The debate might continue because he does run a custom paint job on his Mustang too, though.
So
everybody, geez.
So what we got to do is we need to get everybody on the team, and we need to decide on one series, and then we need to get certain guys to run trading paint schemes, certain guys not to. Let's see who can win, and that way we can finally get the answer to the question.
What if we're just never the ones that win, though? We'll never know.
The world may never know.
My question is, like, before we go to that, sorry, Brett, David, iRacing only recognizes iRacing paints. They don't recognize the thing over top of it, so it wouldn't matter. That's what I always thought.
I agree 100%. If I'm not running trading paints, then I get the default paints. If I don't know, if I don't understand how they would ever know.
Well, do you know how many rigs are in this next photo, Brad?
Yeah, so this was a Facebook post about Podium 1. Check out this walkthrough, the Sim Racing Alley at the Performance Racing Industry Show. And yeah, I lost count. I mean, there is a plethora of sim rigs. Holy moly.
I can't wait to go to one of these shows.
Well, this is not a sim show. This is
just in
this
general.
Is PRI.
But I'm just saying, like, it's going to be stuff like this.
It's amazing. You see several different, Moza, Advanced Sim Racing, Gomez, and then you see the Podium Racing from Nashville. They have the biggest setup out of everybody.
Yeah, D-Box. It's crazy.
it's cool to see sim racing going mainstream when they're at these big events like the PRI show.
That D-Box one, that screen is unbelievable.
All
The
right.
way-
So if you watch this, if you remember, listeners, last week we talked about the VPG GT Mustang GT3 wheel and the Advanced Sim Racing rig that was built for it. So if you get to about 90, oh, I'm sorry, about 50 seconds or so into it, 48, you'll actually see that rig as they're walking through. That's the rig that Advanced Sim
The white
Racing
one?
built. Yep, the white one. That looks really cool.
with the big monitors.
Yep.
Big curved monitors. And that Mustang's gorgeous too. That's sitting there.
Yes. Yes, it is.
I'm a big fan of what Podium One is doing, but man, their stuff's expensive and they're all turnkey. You know, they come out and install it. Yeah, you're buying flights and per diem and everything.
So going back to the video, not to linger at the Advanced Sim Racing thing, but the D box booth here is they've got chairs set up behind the person that's racing. And if you notice, all of the chairs are moving along with the sim. So the D boxes they've also got D boxes on the chairs. How cool is that?
That is neat.
It's like never mind, keep going. I was gonna reference it, something that Canadian you guys wouldn't understand. We had Days of Thunder had a ride at one of our
We had one.
parks.
Yes, we had
And
one
it
down
reminds me
here.
of that where the whole theater was just moving to the movie.
Yep, same here.
So something I'm going to probably do when I go to one of these expos is I'm going to interview people for the show. Like I'm going to whip up my phone and hit voice record and just do hey, I'm going to walk up to this guy and do a 3-minute interview.
Why
And then we're
don't
going
you
to
just
put that on
record?
the podcast.
Just record it too. Do the video.
Yeah. Yeah, we need to buy. You need to get one of those little Bluetooth mics then.
That's a good
That's
idea.
true. Mike, did you say the other day you were confused between the two shows?
I guess I was confused about all the different sim racing expos. Yeah.
Well, the one that's in Chicago isn't a sim racing one. It's a sim expo, so it's like flight sim. It'll be all the other sims.
Right. We said truck sims, farm sims.
Yeah.
For you.
I believe they both are.
Is it? No, the one in
no.
Texas is sim racing, isn't it?
Yeah. All right, Mike, tell us about the SimCube Tuner 2.5 open beta.
Yeah, they got a new software available for SimiCube. It works on all of their equipment, including the bases. And it's really the next evolution. Did I go into and download this? No. Why? Because I only have the base. I don't have other pieces of equipment. And so it's really not needed for me yet. I'll wait for it to come out of beta. But if you have multiple things, if you have the active pedals and the SimiCube drive, direct drive base, this would be something you want because it'll basically, instead of running two pieces of software, you can run one because all the different components are available in the one software package. Very much like Moza has set up and SimMagic, one software to run everything. So pretty cool.
Before we hit the next topic, if you go back and look at the post for the Austin event, it's Sim Expo, not Sim Racing Expo. Now, they do say they're the Sim Racing guys, but you look at most of the rest of the text, and I think it's going to be broader than just Sim Racing in this case. All right, we have SimLab Sequential Shifter. This is an Instagram post. And what do you see?
I like what I see, to be honest. It's
I
very
do
low
too.
profile.
That's the first thing I noticed. I was like, wow, that's nice. Going to go right on top of your 80/20. How nice is that?
Easy to install.
What is the extra thing on the right in some of the pictures?
Handbrake.
Ah.
So
That is
very,
that is slim.
yeah, it's just like a small square that it mounts to, or that it's hooked to. That's what you mount on the 8020. Very low profile. Comes up with a blue, black, and silver look to it on the handle. Looks kind of metalish. So yeah. I like what SimLabs has built. Most of their stuff I like, and this is something if I was in the market for a sequential, this would be definitely something to look at.
Well, and don't forget that they've got a base coming out too that was, I guess, was talked about at the Sim Expo too. That's supposed to be pretty astounding. That they were talking up quite a bit about. It's gonna change. I guess supposed to be the best base on the market, wheelbase.
Yeah, a lot of bold claims, so we'll have to see what Will Ford and others say.
All right, Mike, on the next item, you have to read the top portion of the post, not the bottom portion.
Okay. So we got a post on Instagram. I believe this is Russian or Polish.
Well, that's not the Russian alphabet.
What country is this? Anyway, we have a shifter from that we found on Instagram. They do have it looks like Russian and English, and they call it the Hyper Shift, and it's on pre-order. Has exceeded our wildest expectations, and they have a mini Christmas contest. If you follow and comment, you can enter to win.
We talked about this, I think, last show. This is the shifter from another way that's sequential, and it's H pattern as well. Pretty sure we talked about this last week.
Yeah, another way. Yeah. All right, cool. And we've been saving this next part, this whole next section for David to come back because he's the VR guy. So,
yep, this first one presents a affordable new option for VR on PC. And VR, PlayStation is actually allowing an adapter now that will allow you to plug their VR 2 into a PC. And the review posted that it has some parameters that are a little bit better actually than the HP Reverb, and he was positive on it as a low cost option.
yeah, he said overall it's a good option. If you could pick up one for cheap, it is worth a look.
So, interestingly, I bought a new NVMe drive because I was just running into space issues, and I was going to make that my primary drive. So I installed the latest version of Windows on it and booted it from it, and it bricked my HP Reverb because version 24H2, they have completely removed the ability to run or even install Windows Mixed Reality. It's completely blocked and disabled. So I have now rolled back to my other drive and running it with the old install. And I've basically done everything I can in the registry to disable auto updates on Windows, because once it gets to version 24H2, you can't use an HP reverb anymore at all. So I don't know if this would break that option or not. But it's just an additional item that wasn't on the list. So that's an option. If you get this, you could also use it on your PlayStation if you like to play PlayStation games as well. This
How
next
about
one, go ahead.
Well, no, go ahead. You go ahead.
Yeah, the next one is a deceptive kind of thing. It's Pimax has put out what's now called a membership model. And what it really is basically a rent-to-own model. If you really look at it, they've done something where instead of having to pay the whole price up front, you can basically become a member with a monthly payment and pay a large sum up front and then go with the membership model. But it eventually does get to the point where you don't have to keep paying once you've reached a certain balance. So it's really a form of credit almost, is my understanding as I've looked into it.
It's like it's like your phones when you get your
Mm-hmm.
phone.
Yeah, just about.
So
Another nice thing with the Pimax that's covered in one of the videos is that you can do a 10-day trial to see if you like it or not, if you're afraid you might get motion sickness or something like that.
So, Dave, just to ask you a question, I know you were having issues after you did all the reinstall, and I know you talked about, I guess, with what Windows getting rid of the mixed reality. Is that what it is? Not supporting it or something?
Correct.
So, what options are you looking at? I mean, is Primax something that you're looking at doing, or are there other headsets that you're thinking of, or?
I'll probably end up going with the Pimax, but I'm just going to run the older version of Windows until it somehow prevents me from running the older version of Windows. There's no reason to update it. So I'll keep running the reverb until it quits working. Right.
I was just curious.
Now, a friend and ally to the team, Cody Richardson, who runs, with the into the Apex guys over in Mad Sim Racing, he's got a Pimax Lite, and it runs on Steam VR or OpenXR without Windows Mixed Reality. So that is good to know. So I know that I have that option when I have to, but I'm going to try not to. So, and we'll talk a little bit more about the different Pimax options here in a second. This next video, the next gen VR performance, I'm going to be honest, this was more of a benchmarking nerds video, and it just didn't hold my attention. He was evaluating the new AMD 300X 3D chip with VR, and he was just comparing it to Intel and other situations. And so I just did not get a lot out of this video about VR specifically, more than just the AMD. And he suggested that if you're running it, about the only thing I picked up is that if you're running your settings too high and you're getting glitches, you may just have to give up some resolution on whatever VR you're running. That was the main thing that I picked up out of it.
I picked up on this, that the AMD 9800 X3D is a suitable option. I think when I bought my computer, I went with the 7800 series X3D because everyone said that was the one to get. But I think maybe that's changed if you're building now. I think what I'm hearing is the 9800 is acceptable.
And then this next video, our final video in the topics, I was disappointed when I finished watching it, because it's not a review, and he didn't even actually have the item. He talked a little bit about the fact that he mostly talked about the history of the devices more than this current new device that's coming up. All he said that is it is supposedly going to have true 4K resolution in both eyes, and it's the Pimax Ultra, which it's going to be their newest setup. That's going to be more feature rich than the Pimax Lite, but has some of the improvements of the Pimax Lite over the original Pimax, which was basically twice as wide as Darth Vader's helmet.
That crystal light, I think, is still the sweet spot, right? The best value.
Yep, but this is almost one of those where I'm like, do I go that route, or do I, considering how much time I spend in VR, I'm tempted to see if I go with the buy once, cry once route with the Ultra. It'll depend on how much it ends up costing. But this video didn't really say much about it, except that it's going to be better. He didn't actually have one or do an actual review.
All right, let's talk results. We'll jump to Friday. Open Winter NIS, the Winter NASCAR iRacing Series at Charlotte. I got a DNF. First, I didn't load the correct set, so I had to pit for fuel on lap 2. Was able to get a lucky dog and get my track position back. Started off pretty quick, worked my way up to round 7th, and then got dumped from a guy from behind in the middle of the corner. 2.5 minutes damage. After that, it kind of went downhill. I ended up spinning out on my own and rage quitting. Justin Pearson, he got spun down into pit road and rage quit. Moving on to Wednesday Open, we move on to Indy. I wrecked out with 5 to go. I just hit it for a little bit of, I just pitted a little bit ago for a fuel splash and go with no tires, but the car wouldn't turn and I killed the wall and blew the engine. Before that, on lap 8, guy got dumped down onto pit road at a 40-second hold it was a lap down. I was able to recover that and get clear up to the front, eventually leading the race before doing that stop and go and then killing the car. I mean, I really should have took tires. I was, it was a green stop. I only needed a gallon and a half. I was thinking, okay, I'll just get a splash and go. I'll go back out, run 8 or 9 laps, and I'll finish the race. But it didn't work out. I should have got tires.
So, Mike, let me just stop you for a second and ask a question. I've never run the 87s here. Back in the 80s, they ran at Ontario, which was basically a carbon copy of Indy. How is the car at Indy?
It's super hard to drive.
Okay. I was just curious because, like I said, they used to run at Ontario Speedway, which was literally just a carbon copy of Indy.
Yeah, I find it difficult. It's right on the edge of, it's floated into the corner with a little brake. You got to let it roll and then gas out of the corner. It's really easy to overdrive. That's the answer. Moving on. You have a rare entry by Donnie Spiker. He says, giving a go at the complete GT4 schedule, GT4 Fix, GT4 Sports Car Challenge, and the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge. The aforementioned 2 series are at VIR this week. GT4 Race 1 qualified 2nd with a P4. Race 2 qualified 7th with a P2. The Sports Car Challenge Race 1 qualified 2nd with a P2. Race 2 qualified 5th with a P6, 100% rain. A productive week 1, a couple of podiums, and a top 3 in points in both series. Well done. Moving on to my FIA F4. I got a P7, first race of the new season at Laguna Seca. Started 13th, made my way up to finish 7th. Then I got a P11. I got wrecked on somebody going side by side with me up the hill before the corkscrew on lap 1. I had to get repairs. I was dead last, 24th. Ended up driving clear back up to finish P11. IMSA, David, 3 consecutive P2s.
Yeah, I'm doing pretty well at Watkins Glen, and I'm starting to become really confident with my pace in the rain. Because not just here, but at the blackout race as well. Once we got into the wet, I equalized with a lot of guys that were smoking me on the dry tires. The middle P2, I almost won. It's been a while since I've had a win. I was close, but I stayed on dries even though it was raining and just stretched them as far as I could. It got up to like 33% wet and it was still drivable. It was definitely, but I was definitely having to ease up. And a guy that had been quite a bit faster than me had about a 20-second lead on me because I didn't take tires and he did. He was about 30 seconds behind me, but made it all up on the last lap to pass me. So a little disappointing, but I think I turned a P4 or 5 car into a P2 by staying on the dry tires. The last one, I started kind of in the middle. It was one of those starts where the leader didn't go until the green. And so that means all the people in the back who didn't qualify jump the green and just go ahead and take it 3 and 4 wide. Corner 1, a whole bunch of people wreck. I back out and just ignore it and call them all out on TeamSpeak saying, did you win? Or not TeamSpeak. Call them all down on the voice chat and said, did you win yet? It's lap 1. And including one of the guys that took it 3 wide. He didn't wreck out then, but I saw him a few laps later, multiple laps down because of over driving. And so on this one, I fell back to like 16th, avoiding the first lap calamity and drove all the way back up to 2nd, especially in the rain. And I did switch to wet tires on that one. I just wanted to see if it worked out better or not.
Okay, and then Brad, you got a P3.
Yeah, so I didn't put up the results of the first race. So last night, David and I ran together, and that race started very, I guess, like a 50% wet track, and we're coming up out of the boot, and I just spun out and backed the car into the Armco, knocked the rear wing off of it. So, sat there for 3 minutes, got it fixed, and then went back out and ended up wrecking again. So whatever, just got too ticked off to run again. So, but ended up running the 945, started P3, and that's where I finished. Ended up giving up a few spots on the opening laps in the rain. So this race started out at like, I guess about, I want to say it was like 20% wet. And I was surprised so many guys started on dries. And within, gosh, the track state was like 50% within about the first 3 laps. And guys took off.
When we started. Or
yeah,
about the next race.
No, I'm talking about the next race. It didn't start that wet. And a lot of guys started on dries. And I'm like, it just floored me because if you look at the forecast, I mean, within, I don't know, 15 minutes, we're going to be at 100% rain. And so those guys ended up having to pit and got the spots back. So, kept it clean, finished with 0 X's, and, got a P3. Was not as quick towards the end as the guys behind me. I struggle at Watkins Glen, and I don't know why. I was thinking to myself the other night, it's just one of those tracks where any of the tracks where it seems to be, it's a momentum and there's not a whole lot of heavy braking zones. I just don't do well. So it's just, for me, trying to keep momentum through the sweepers and all that stuff, I don't do well. But then I start thinking, I'm like, well, like Mosport, I do well. And that's kind of similar. So I don't know what my deal is at Watkins Glen. I guess I just need to work a little bit more there.
All right. And then we have the League Major Series 12-hour blackout. Tom, Greg, David, P7.
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit in the interview as well, but pretty pleased with the result considering we were the slowest qualifier in the GTP class. We also found out in the interview that we had the second least incident points in our split, only behind the leader, and that's among people who finished. So best instant CPI. We had one of the best CPIs, I guess, corners per instance. Once the rain came, not only were we better at staying on track, but our speed, like I said, equalized with a lot of the field. So I ran the beginning of the race in the dry, and I got lapped within the first stint. This guy was just hauling it. But when the rain came out in my second stint, the leader started actually out. I started outrunning the leader at that point, even though it was laps down at that point. We got meatballs twice due to unavoidable situations. The first one, Tom came up on a and had to check up for a GT3, and the guy behind us did not account for that and just rear-ended us. It wasn't protestable. It was somewhat of a racing incident, but I still feel like that person could have done a better job of seeing what was ahead, but they were racing in a tunnel. And then the other one, what was the other one? I don't remember what caused the second meatball. We only had one drive-through, and that happened when the weird stuff happened at the end with the tires just acting undrivable. I basically spun out exiting pit road. And I got 4X as a result. But it was nice. We passed a lot of cars from just staying out of the garage as much, basically.
Can we talk?
And it was a great event. Go ahead, Greg.
Can we talk about how nice it was to race a road race where you didn't have to just run qualifying laps all the time, and there was a little bit of strategy because of the cautions. Like, it was so much better that way.
Yeah, we covered it in the interview too, and I really loved the way these cautions came out, because remember in the past they tried just a kind of a random based on number of X's. In this case, the deciding factor was, do you have a car that has to tow? Okay, so random spins, if they're going to be able to get back on the track, or even if they're able to drive themselves back to the pit, no caution. And we did still have quite a few safety cars, but it created a nice organic, true feeling to the race. And sometimes if you were in the right place, you could get a lap back because of where the caution fell too.
Okay, moving on to other events I ran. I ran Pickup Cup at Charlotte, got wrecked out. Then I ran Ferrari at the Nürburgring, and rain started. I was fourth. I finished P5, but actually I didn't finish. I wrecked out somewhere on lap 2 because this is a 3-lap race. But I was the last car left on the track out of 21, so that means position 6 through 21 crashed out in the first lap, basically. And there were only 5 cars left, and I crashed out about halfway through. It was tough. I didn't know what I was signing up for there in the rain at the Nürburgring. Then I did the FF 1600 at Lime Rock. I kept spinning off on turn 1, finished almost dead last. Then hosted Car of Tomorrow at Talladega, finished P3. Then I tried the BMW at Alton Park Circuit, some kind of internet issue. And so I must have blinked out on the start because the guy behind me basically drove right through me, kind of ghosted through me. I ended up getting wrecked off to the left. And not but 10 seconds later, I got completely disconnected from the server due to throughput. Let's talk league racing Polar Series Watkins Glen. I got a P14, got what I deserved, basically didn't go off the track really much. Brad, you got a P7.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of finished about where I should have. Look, at the end of the day, my whole premise with surviving that race was, I ran 2 races there in NIS season, and I don't think I ever completed a lap. So I was super happy to get the P7. Had no speed for Greg, Mr. Cup car on the road course, speed demon there with the P2. So nice job, Greg.
Yeah, Greg, P2. Great run.
I don't know what it is, man. I was just saying, like I said to you guys in the chat, if I could run a road course series with the Cup car, I'd probably be a 4,000 I rating.
Yeah, and there was no catching the guy who won it, right? He was just
I was
outright faster.
I was catching him. It's just you're running qualifying lap times. There's no fall off with the tires, nothing. It's he had a 10-second lead on me and lost it in pit road because we figured he took tires, and then because he took tires, he never was able to gain speed from that after the pit stop. I was faster with older tires.
Now, who was that guy? He was famous for being an announcer for something, or?
Isn't he an announcer for the V8 Supercar
the
series?
Supercars. Yeah, he's the announcer for the Supercar series in Australia. So that's what who it was that won the race. Donnie Spiker got a P17. Chris Waldron a P21. David Hall, you wrecked out early.
Yeah, P25, dead last. But just like y'all said, I finished where I deserved. It's the first time in the Cup car in 6 months. Not the best track to come back and try to get back in the hang of it. I did practice for the hour of the practice, but got in the carousel on lap 1, wasn't trying to push it, but the car still got loose and slammed the wall, broke the wheel. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go play something else.
All right, let's jump to final thoughts. David Hall.
All right. Starting to dip my toes back into the oval racing. Been doing some of the 87s, doing okay there when I finish. And hopefully when we get back to oval racing in the Cup car, I'll start to enjoy it again. Really enjoying the GTP, enjoying the rain. And I'm not going to read this whole analogy, but yeah, never mind. I'll just leave that alone and just scrap it because I'd have to go into the whole thing to go into it, and we really need it to come up in a topic or something. So yeah, the play is over. So I don't have any gigs in the evening for a while. So I should be around for a good amount of time.
All right, Greg Hectus, final thought.
Just kind of weeding my way in and out of racing right now. I'm on my my lull for racing in iRacing this little bit. I've been so busy with work and long hours because of the weather we've gotten here, and obviously it being Christmas times coming up here. Hopefully in the new year everything starts settling down and I could focus. I really want to focus on running the GTP car for a full season in some endurance series, maybe the IMSA series, just to stay focused on it. I felt like I let David down in the blackout race. With not being totally prepared for it, I did feel I was okay. I wasn't as confident as I was racing Monday night. So I got to get better at the endurance cars.
All right, Brad Wren, final thought.
So years kind of wrapping down. Got a Christmas gift a little early. My in-laws always give us a wish list, so I threw on a set of the Govee light bars, and oddly enough, my mother-in-law had everything, all the Christmas gifts shipped to us instead of having them to her house. So I ended up ordering the from Sim Sport Gadget the bars to hold them, to mount them. So I'm going to be doing that probably tomorrow. So I'm looking forward to adding ambient light to the sim rig. Excited about that, and just continue to try to add stuff on here as it goes. So a little Christmas early for me.
All right, very nice. I love my ambient lighting. Sure you will too. My final thought. Wow, I am struggling in that 87 car. Last week I couldn't finish the race without wrecking. And this week it's kind of more of the same. I'm kind of discouraged, to be honest. And so I don't know if I'm going to keep running it or not. I'm almost at the point I'm going to stop running that series, just because I feel like I'm not capable. I don't know what it is, but I ended up spinning out on my own this this week. I did that several times last week, so I got to figure it out. Or I'm just going to step away from it until maybe NASCAR season. So I'm still debating that. Still pretty much decided I'm going to buy that Moza Active Brake when it comes out, or the Sim Magic, whichever one's first. Um, I got the money. I haven't killed myself over Christmas spending money on other people, and so I'm prepared to buy it when it comes out, and looking forward to that. So I hope it's soon. With that, hey, we'll see you on the track later. Okay, title ideas. We got one.